Hey folks, Nick here from another BookTube channel. Today, something a little bit different. Don't let it ever be said that I don't give modern comics a chance. That's exactly what we're looking at today. A book that came out very recently, I think within the past year. This is The Human Target by Tom King and Greg Smallwood. This is issue number 2. And I, I'm not saying that there aren't good comic books that are coming out of DC and Marvel nowadays. I'm just saying that the majority of what's coming out of those big two studios is pretty samey and just predictable and just doesn't look very interesting whatsoever. And there's just like a billion titles and they all interconnect with each other. And it's just a pain to, even if you want to read one, just the lore and the amount of extra homework you've got to do to keep up, it's just not worth it to someone like me. If I read something newer, it's going to be by a creator that I really like. And I really like Tom King. I can't believe it's a controversial statement to say that Tom King is one of the best comic writers working today, especially out of the DC and Marvel camps. But it is a bit of a controversial statement. He's very divisive, which is insane because he is one of the only writers for those big studios that actually takes chances on lesser known characters and interesting just story types, just doing things with characters that you wouldn't expect. I think Tom King, and I swear I'm going to get to this book soon, but I think Tom King isn't super interested in superheroes, and I think he's very interested in the people that dress up like superheroes and deal with their problems that way instead of facing them head on like a normal person. So when he wrote Batman, the main title of Batman for 85 issues, he didn't write a Batman comic. He wrote a Bruce Wayne comic. And a lot of people hated that. I personally loved it. I thought it was incredibly emotional and moving, but people weren't looking for that out of Batman. They wanted Scott Snyder, generic action stuff, which didn't do it for me at all. So Tom King is basically now relegated to just only working on these maxi series. He's done Mr. Miracle, which is spectacular, Strange Adventures, which is great, Batman Catwoman, which I admit was not very good. He even did a Rorschach, which I liked. And typically Alan Moore stuff is off limits, but Tom King is very much influenced by Alan Moore, and we're going to see that throughout this issue of Human Target. I think as a writer, if you're watching my Swamp Thing read along, I talk about how much Alan Moore loves to be introspective and not focus on the superheroics of the action as much. And I think Tom King is very much of that camp. First, I'll start with this cover really quickly by Greg Smallwood. It's an amazing cover. It is an homage. I do not, for the life of me, remember what it is an homage to. So if you know what this is referencing, I was thinking maybe like Bewitched or something magic related because it looks like a magic thing. There's an Apologies 2 down here in the signature, but I can't make out the name, so that's not helping me. So if you know what this is a reference to, an homage to, let me know. But the art is such a star in this book. Greg Smallwood, I only recognize him from a small brief run on Moon Knight that he did, or at least that I read, a brief one that I read. Maybe he did more. But his art is absolutely gorgeous in this, and he knocks it out of the park along with Tom King's writing. So the setup here, this is issue number 2, like I said. So what's happened so far? The story so far is the human target is Christopher Chance. He is a master of disguise. He's also like an excellent detective. And he rents out his abilities to people who basically they are targets, and people might assassinate them. And so they hire Christopher Chance to disguise himself as them, be the human target, take the actual assassination attempt, and in the process oust the assassin, find them, and save the person's life, whatever, and put the assassin behind bars. So in the first issue, Christopher Chance is hired by Lex Luthor to do an appearance as Lex, who's anticipating being assassinated at a speaking event. And sure enough, he gets shot, and he's wearing a vest, so he survives, and they get the guy, whatever. Unfortunately, before that, there was a separate unseen assassination attempt on Lex in which poison was slipped into his drink. But it was Christopher that took the drink, so he ended up getting poisoned instead. Now he's got only 12 days to live. He goes to the Justice League International's doctor, Dr. Midnight, to, to see what his odds are. That's where he gets the 12-day diagnosis or prognosis. I don't know what you call it. And he opts to say, like, don't let the other Justice Leaguers know. I'm going to try to figure this out on my own. Like, I want to see who killed me. So that's where we are. And now we're in issue 2 here. Christopher is in the pizzeria that is below his apartment. And the guy that works there, Luigi, who is not Italian and not really named Luigi, says that, a girl came. She's upstairs. She's waiting for you. There are some women you can say no to. Some women you can't. She was the one you can't, so I sent her upstairs. And when he goes upstairs, he sees Ice. And when I did this page turn here, and I saw Ice for the first time, I fell in love like immediately. I'm not ashamed to say that. I was immediately in love. And I know what you might be thinking, like, Nick, you talk about in your Swamp Thing read-alongs how much you love Abby as well. And she's also a young woman with stark white hair. What's up with that? And to that I say, mind your own business. You're not my psychiatrist. Leave me alone. Let's move on. So here we are. This is Ice. She's a member of the Justice League International. And she's here to talk to Christopher. And as you could tell from the art, we're looking at very minimal colors here. Greg Smallwood does everything. He does. There's not really inking. This to me looks like colored pencil. Honestly, it's probably digital, but the effect is kind of a colored pencil or even a crayon in some instances. Probably a digital touch-ups. And he's doing the colors as well. And it's phenomenal. I think like on each page, there's only like at most like 6 to 8 colors being used, and they're mostly in these blocky patterns. Everything that casts light has kind of a hard corner. It's not a lot of blobs. It's just rectangles or things with actual edges. Like this page here, I think has like 5 colors on it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with the green, maybe. And there's some subtle shades in the skin that change, but it's very much and white is used as a color. White's not being used as an absence of color. He is actually putting down some white media, and you can tell because it goes over the colors sometimes. But Ice is here to talk to Christopher Chance, and immediately this is very much you can tell from the way that the lights are reflecting through the blinds. This is pulp noir, all the way. And when a beautiful woman is standing in your office in a pulp noir story, what is she? She's the femme fatale every time. So we get that dynamic instantly from here. He's saying it's a pleasure to meet you. He says there's a chill in the office. She says, and she, immediately they're not talking about why she's actually there. It's a little bit of just playfulness. She says, you've still got some on you. She points at her lips. And we see he's got the pizza sauce on his cheek there. He says, excuse me. She says, allow me. She grabs the tissue. She wipes his lip. She says, that's better. We get the close-up of her lips. This is a very intimate exchange that happens here. And that narration outside of their dialogue is, there's a chill in the office, like that first hint of fall. A layer of crisp, cold air sneaking in with the hot. A subtle warning. Something that lets you know everything's about to change. And we get that when we're looking closely at her lips that he is obviously immediately drawn to, because how could you not be? So they get down to business a little bit, and he starts coughing. And because the poison, it's drying out his throat, he's got a lot of pain throughout his body. And so the coughing is to let us know that that's happening. He's got some alcohol to like burn that pain a little bit, just to make it stop, to alleviate it. And he tells her that he's just recovering from a sore throat. She says that she heard from Dr. Midnight what he's going through, but he doesn't tell her that he's dying, just that he was poisoned and that, it had a little bit of an effect on him. And she says that she's here to help him find who tried to kill him, because it looks like it was somebody from the Justice League, her Justice League, the Justice League International, which is a series I'm not familiar with, a team I'm not familiar with. This is my first experience with either the Human Target or Ice, and a lot of these characters, it's my first time reading them, and that doesn't take away from it at all. You get fully realized versions of these characters in this comic, and that's one of the reasons I love Tom King so much, is taking those lesser known characters you might not be familiar with and making them feel so just full and rich in a short amount of time. So they decide to go for a drive. He doesn't want to talk in their office anymore, and they decide to go for a drive to the beach. They're going to go hang out at the beach and talk there. More of that interesting lighting. This is pure pop art. I asked an artist friend of mine, someone who actually knows what he's talking about, how he would classify this artwork. So it's a bit pop art. It's also a bit Art Nouveau. And he said, look up the art of J.C. Leyendecker, I think his name is, because it kind of reminds me of that. And when I did that, like one of the first Google image results was something that looked like exactly like this panel. And I was like, wow, damn, good call, man. So it's always good to have an artist friend to help you out. Shout out to my good friend Brian for helping me out with that. But they're going for a drive to the beach, and something that I love about this art is that, again, the it's not like pen and ink; it's like colored pencil. So the holding lines aren't all black. So her hair here, it's all just a big like gray pencil or crayon or like I don't know techniques, but it's all just color, and it's everything around it is blocks of color. These clouds are just blocks of color. There's no holding line on them. These hills, there's very little holding line. There's some black to denote like crags and stuff, but other than that, it's just colors making it up. And during this drive, we get a little bit of Ice's backstory about how she grew up, how she discovered her powers. Whenever we go into a flashback, the minimal color amount becomes even less. So here, there's only 2 colors, with white being one of them. And she talks about how she accidentally killed her father and grandfather because she was trying to stop them from fighting, and her powers got out of her hand. But she doesn't tell people that story. She made up another story about her origin so that she can kind of escape that tragic backstory. And again, continuing with that like femme fatale noir dynamic, everything that these two characters say to each other, despite the fact that they just met, is extremely sexually charged. So they arrive at the beach. He says, "There, sand and waves and sun. What more do you need?" And she says, "Oh, I don't know," as she takes his hand. "I could think of a few things." She gives him that coy little look. It's totally ridiculous. If you want to be really like a stiff critic and say like, oh, why are the women characters, being sexualized like this? I don't think they're being sexualized. I think that she is maybe sexual and she likes it, and this is just they're playing, they're flirting. That's just like the thing. So you could levy that criticism at it. I think it's part of the genre. I think it's something that works. I think it's not something that's too like gross or misogynistic. It's playful, and their relationship builds throughout this series, and it's really nice. It's not like just cheap or cliche. And so, all right, now they're walking on the beach, and she tells him about her days with the Justice League International and about how the world was always at risk and something crazy was happening. But at the end of the day, they always found a way to laugh about it. Things weren't so dour back then. A reference to the fact that, in those older comic books, they weren't as serious. They weren't as dark. Whereas now everything has to be extremely realistic and gritty. Because people took the wrong lessons away from Alan Moore in Swamp Thing. But again, pointing out that relation to Alan Moore and that influence by him, Tom King, very much so about introspective narration and using 9-panel grids. Obviously, he's not doing the art, but he's putting in the script what he wants the panel layouts to be. He uses a lot of 9-panel grid, which we'll see actually on the next page, I think, here. And yeah, right here. So and we get, again, we're halfway through this comic. There's no action in it. These are just two characters talking to each other, and Christopher is talking about how he watched his father die, and he's remembering how he used to skip stones as a kid, and so ice makes him an ice stone that he could skip across the water, and just keep telling her about his childhood, his life, and he starts coughing again, which kind of breaks it up, breaks the mood of the moment. Also, very decompressed storytelling. We get a lot of like really tight beat for beat stuff. There's not a huge stretch of time between each panel on every page, so it's very slowly paced kind of storytelling, which matches the mood here. And now they get kind of to the meat of the matter. They're talking about the poison, and Christopher tells her, we're talking about a lot of things, but we're not talking about the one thing you're known for, and that is, what is ice without fire? And in the Justice League International, Ice's partner was fire, because I think she was created in the 80s, and that's they honestly kind of lame. Like, they were lame superheroes. Ice is a lame name, fire is a lame name, but we get a little bit of background again there. And Christopher is saying to Ice what he thinks happens, about why he thinks that she is here. And he says, let me guess, the Dr. Midnight called you and said he doesn't really trust me, and he wanted somebody at the Justice League International to look into me, and so he chose you, being the sweetest, kindest member. Says that there was an attempted poisoning on the human target. What should we do here? Should we keep it to ourselves? Should we look into it? Is it possible someone from Justice League International did this? And you said to him, it's fine. It's probably a mistake. I'll go ahead and I'll look into it. And you don't tell him that someone who might have had a motive to kill Lex, and that fire is that person. So you decide to go downtown and to make friends with Christopher Chance. Another excellent panel here. 3 colors: blue, orange, white. And it's fantastic. So he tells her all that, and he says and he narrates, the temperature drops 40 degrees. I start shivering. And she changes the subject. She says, I'm tired of seeing the water. I want to go in it. There's a place to get a bathing suit across the way. Why don't you pay the check and you join me? So they do that, and she tries on a bathing suit. She says, what do you think? And his narration is just, Jesus. He's like, yeah, it'll do. Like he says, it'll do. Love a good femme fatale. Why not? She says, all right, get yourself a swimsuit. The day is ending. I like the colors at sunset. I like how they burn. And in the narration here, I love this. Jesus, far as I can tell, the temperature's back to normal, but I'm still shivering. Ooh, great pulpy flirtation stuff. It's so good. It's so strong. And then beautiful colors for sunset here. The blue of the water, the purple and pink of the sunset. We've been using these colors kind of throughout, but it was very sunny previously, so now these warm colors for the sunset work absolutely perfectly. And they're talking more. She talks about how Lex Luthor killed Ice. Ice was once killed by Lex in a way. There was a guy called the Overmaster that came to Earth, and he killed Ice. Obviously, she got better. But Fire didn't take that so well, and neither did Ice's boyfriend or ex-boyfriend, Guy Gardner, the Green Lantern. And Guy is the one that found out that Lex is the one who hired Overmaster and brought him to Earth. So he wanted to get back at Lex. Fire wanted to get back at Lex as well. So now Ice is thinking, so there is, if you hear that, you think that they have motive, but, Guy is all talk, and Fire wouldn't do that. So you're barking up the wrong tree. Don't really look at them. You're going to hear these stories, but there's nothing really to them. Just believe me, trust me. And She tells him all this, and he starts coughing again in the middle of the water. And he doesn't have his flask with him, so he can't stop coughing. And so she stops him instead with a kiss. She breathes cold air down his throat. We get the little exhale, the cold air coming out of him. And I love the narration there. After the kiss, he says, "Yesterday I was dead. Today I'm in trouble." Oh, great. Love it. Love it. The night's over. He drives her home. It's not going to be the last time they see each other. They end up teaming up throughout the rest of the series. I'll leave that for you to discover because this is a fantastic 12-issue series. And what we end on, the last page here, is him summarizing a little twist, which is, at least I didn't tell her about Doc. Give me that. I didn't tell her it was me on the phone doing Doc's voice like I do. Remember, he's a master of disguise. Or that Guy had already and stupidly confronted Lex about Overmaster and about blaming Lex for Ice's death. Information Lex was only too happy to share with me yesterday. I knew she'd make some excuse. I knew she'd come, and I'd get a chance to see up close the woman who might have killed me. I could still smell her perfume on my suit. To be continued. And I love what they do with the final panels here. It's like movie credits where we get the DC Comics Presents, The Human Target, Chapter 2, We Cry, and then we get the credits. It's excellent. It's such a fun series. I love the artwork by Greg Smallwood. It is absolutely stellar. Perfect mix of pop art, interesting line art, nice like pencil shadows, blocky colors. It's just so unique and interesting. So I highly recommend looking up The Human Target, checking this series out. I think both volumes of it are available in hardcover right now. Check your local library if you don't want to pay hardcover prices or wait for the omnibus, which I'm sure inevitably will come out. But let me know if you've read this book, what your thoughts are on it, on Tom King, on Greg Smallwood, anything like that. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. But now it's time to get back to reading.